We are Rogue Media Sports.
Who doesn't love a classic chocolate chip cookie? Famous Amos has been making them since the 70s, 1975 to be exact. With semi-sweet chocolate chips and a satisfying crunch, it's everything classic in one bite-sized cookie, and fans couldn't get enough. That's right. You'll find our original recipe, the one you know and love, in every bag of Famous Amos original chocolate chip cookies. Find Famous Amos anywhere you buy your favorite snacks.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it, between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
It is the Doomsday Podcast. We are live from AT&T Stadium, high above. Thank you, Jim and Sally Nation. This suite, we got a beautiful suite up here. Suite, I don't want to give the name because people may start showing up trying to come in here. Ed Werder and I, after a Cowboys 35-17 win. It was actually more dominant than that. A couple of late scores for the Giants, or second half. The game was pretty much over. They did some things. Ed back on the sideline early in the before the game. He was out here early. Had a lot of good news throughout the day. Involved in all of ESPN's coverage, and then of course. After the game, doing some things. Ed and I both coordinating. I was even helping out Archer tonight. I mean, it's like I'm back at ESPN. Archer's like, hey, can you send me some of that? I'm like, okay, sure. I can do that. But, Ed, what did it feel like, man, to be back in the game? I mean, you've done some of these preseason games, but this is your first regular season game in about 2.5 years with ESPN. Was it just like riding the bike? Did it just feel very normal and natural, or are you going to have to kind of ramp up to this?
No, I think I came back to work at ESPN at Cowboys training camp in early August, and I've never really stopped since. What you say is true about this being the first meaningful game that I've covered here since, as it occurs to me now, that playoff loss to the Packers 2 years ago. And the interesting thing about that is I just happened, coincidentally, to have realized I pulled the same suit that I wore to that game that I wore to this game. So it was the end of one thing and the beginning of the next, as it turns out. And the end of the same thing I'm doing now. But the same blue suit. So Favre would be impressed. But and one of the interesting things in the lead up to this game, I did my usual thing where I called the opposing team so that they could, allow me to interview a couple people so I could get a report on their perspective and be educated about their team as well. And so I talked to Eli Manning late in the week from the Star, and I also talked to Pat Shurmur, the Giants head coach, from the Star. And the most interesting thing, and this was my final point that I made on my live shot this morning, was that Pat Shurmur said to me when we were talking about Ezekiel Elliott and the challenge for the Giants of knowing what his role is going to be and defending him accordingly, Pat Shurmur said, you know what, I'm not that concerned about whatever it is Ezekiel Elliott does, because we've known, despite how long his holdout was, we knew he was going to be our opponent. We knew he was going to be in a Cowboys uniform, and we were going to be tasked with defending against him. What we don't know, and what causes me some consternation, is we've never seen Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. We have no idea what we're up against as far as how he's going to deploy all of the personnel they have and what problems he's going to present us that we've not been able to familiarize ourselves with, because he didn't show any of it in the preseason. Well, he showed it all tonight, and Pat Shurmur's fears were totally justified in that regard. This is one of the great offensive performances we've seen. Now, they had a great one against Philadelphia, last year, too, when they had the 400-yard passer, a 200-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver for the first time in history. But what Dak Prescott did tonight in this game, that's the best I've ever seen Dak Prescott play, especially as a thrower from the pocket.
Yeah, he did a remarkable job, and boy, Ed and I were able to talk to Jerry. We'll hear from Jerry Jones, also from Kellen Moore. I thought that was funny, Ed. After the game, normally they, if you catch Rod or you in the past, if you catch Linehan, you're just kind of fortunate maybe to grab them as they head out. You might get maybe a few people.
They don't really
them.
talk after the game.
It's not a big thing. Tonight, they said, "Okay, guys, Kellen Moore will be right over here." They made it a little more.
They do make him available during the week. Once a week, the coordinators are available. So,
but tonight they're like, "Hey, Kellen's going to be right over here, guys."
I don't remember them doing that very often for Scott Linehan.
So we got to visit with both those guys, and so it's good to be both of us here. Last year, one of us would be here, one of us. But we all on the same page tonight, all working towards something. Great to have DJ Ringenberg out here on site. Frito Nation Productions. Frito, play the music, please. All right, there it is, and we come to you live tonight from the 400 level. Suite, beautiful suite as we look down upon the field after the game. Ed covered this thing for ESPN. I covered it for, let's see, who was I with? The Matt Mosley show.
Who weren't you with?
Who weren't? Yeah, that's right. I had a tough time getting in here tonight, but I did make it in.
Fortunately, they didn't look at your credential.
My credential. It seems to be another man on it, but that's okay.
It's definitely another man.
We made it. Yes, he may be another ethnicity even. But here we are doing the Doomsday podcast, and it's fun to be back together again. Regular season, and the Cowboys get it off to a great start. Ed, let's start with you with the. I know you've got a ton of notes and a ton of things you gathered before the game, but in talking to folks, and I saw them spilling out tonight, I was kind of bemoaning the fact I couldn't get over to talk to like the wide receivers coach. I would have enjoyed visiting with him, but I was talking to Kellen Moore on nights like tonight, and apparently there's a picture going around about me, kind of hovering over Jerry Jones. People said it was a little bit creepy that I was that close to Jerry, but as you talk about a 35-17 win, other than that first drive, wasn't it funny though, Ed? I'm sitting up there tonight and I watched that Giants first drive, and I'm thinking, uh-oh. Everything went right for them. 59-yard run by Saquon.
91-yard drive. Nobody had done that against the Cowboys defense the entire year last season.
They looked good. Ingram had that fun little, they kind of went one way and came back the other. Ingram had the touchdown. It looked very easy early for the Giants. And you thought, and then, really the Cowboys, after that one sort of, they didn't really do anything with that first drive. Giants score, and then the rest of the night, Cowboys took over. The Cowboys
scored 5 consecutive touchdowns on 5 consecutive possessions. And, I think we talked about Kellen Moore. So let's try to create some context for what's happened here. First of all, we have to mention that the quarterback, Dak Prescott, is playing for his contract, right? He's trying to create, through his performance, leverage to get the contract that he wants from Jerry and Stephen Jones that has so far eluded them in negotiations that, quite honestly, none took place today. It would have been the most remarkable thing of all time. It would have been the most Cowboy thing ever if they had signed their quarterback on the day of their first game, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't. And Jerry said after the game, it's imminent, and by imminent, he means a matter of days before this happens. They have a head coach in Jason Garrett who's coaching for his job. He was not among the $185 million award winners when it came to Cowboys contract extensions this offseason. He's coaching in the last year of his deal. And then there's Kellen Moore and the chance that Jerry Jones took on him, making him the offensive coordinator. Well, in his time with the Cowboys, Kellen Moore has been very close to Dak Prescott in 3 different roles. He was ahead of him on the quarterback depth chart when Dak was a rookie in 2016. Then he became the quarterback's coach last year in Kellen's first year as an assistant coach. And now he's a first-time play caller for Dak. And in his very first NFL game as a play caller, Dak Prescott throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns for the first time in 49 NFL starts. He achieves a perfect quarterback rating, something that Troy Aikman and Roger Staubach, Hall of Famers, never did in a Cowboys uniform.
Is that 158.3?
158.3. The last time a Cowboys quarterback did it was 50 years ago. Craig Morton in 1969. Don Meredith did it in 1967.
Who can forget?
It's been 50 years since a Cowboys quarterback finished a game with a perfect quarterback rating, and Staubach and Aikman never did it. Now, I'm not saying Dak Prescott is better than either one of those players.
Yep.
I'm saying I've never seen Dak Prescott better, and I'm not sure he's had more weapons than he's got right now on offense. And maybe time will prove that this scheme and the mismatches it creates is ideal for him. Because I don't think, and I think I've said this before, I don't think they've, in previous years, had a system designed for him. The system was designed for Romo, right? And they've modified it a little bit, but it was never really designed for Dak Prescott, a dual threat quarterback. And I think what they're doing now suits his skill set enormously well. But the key to this tonight was he was brilliant from the pocket. He was comfortable. He was well protected. He was accurate. And what did the new quarterbacks coach John Kitten talk about when he sat down with us at training camp? He said, a completion is not good enough, Dak. The great quarterbacks in this league put the ball right where they want it to be. And they put it right where they want it to be so that a receiver can get yards after the catch. Yards after the catch is synonymous with great quarterbacking. Guess how many yards after the catch the Cowboys had tonight based on ESPN stats and info and their trackers?
180.
They had 172. Good guess. Of the 405 yards, 172 came after the catch. But I think we saw Dak deliver balls to 8 different receivers. They were all different kinds of throws. I just thought it was a remarkable performance by Dak Prescott in his first opportunity in Kellen Moore's offense. Now, they have to prove they can do it over time at this level. But what they did tonight is going to create a lot of confidence going into Washington.
That's what I said. You'll hear from Kellen. I ended that interview with Kellen by saying, "Are you a little worried? You know, you're now expected to do this every
Raised
week."
expectations.
The way he does it, yards after catch. Interesting point to even bring up. 100 to 172 is a lot for those receivers. Cobb was really good.
Yep.
I mean, he just kept on his feet. Cooper continued to do the same thing. I should say, boy, I feel a little bit bad for the rookie cornerback DeAndre Baker out of Georgia. I mean, that man made his bones against Mizzou and Vandy, in Florida, and he came out here and got exposed in game 1. Now, he may go on to have a great career, but it was horrific in that opening night. They had a man named Antonio Hamilton. Rough outing. Number 31, horrific. Well, I mean, you just go right Giants, down the line. The secondary just had
people don't
night.
think the Giants are a good defensive team. I think there are a lot of people who think they're going to score on offense, which would be the first time they've been able to do that in a long time. But on defense, I mean, last year they got rid of Snacks Harrison, the defensive tackle, at the trade deadline. They got rid of the corner that they drafted in the first round at the trade deadline. And then in the offseason, they let Landon Collins, their best defensive player, go to Washington as an unrestricted free agent because they didn't tender him. And they traded Olivier Vernon, the defensive end who played virtually every snap and is a good run and pass defender on the edge. They traded him to Cleveland.
And OBJ, Jabril Peppers comes back in that deal. I didn't see a ton from him at safety, the former Michigan standout. It was a rough night for the Giants, but as Jerry wanted to point out, the Cowboys are the ones who caused that rough night. In fact, let's hear from Jerry. Both Ed and I were both around Jerry, and we both had an opportunity to visit with him. Here is Jerry Jones talking about a offensive play caller that he was just, I've heard Jerry, Ed, over the years, wowed by certain things. RG3, many years ago, Jerry was blown away by what he had done.
He's a man given to hyperbole.
He is. But I think tonight, the performance of even Jerry wasn't quite prepared for. In fact, he wanted to know when people said, hey, the variance or how different it was from the past, that kind of thing with Kellen Moore. Jerry made it clear, no, it was a huge day. It wasn't just like, hey, this is a little better. This is a huge difference in this offense. Here is Jerry Jones talking to us about Kellen Moore and the big night that he had.
When's the last time you had this many weapons on offense, you think? Obviously, Gallup's come a long way, but this is, you got a lot of different directions to go.
Yeah, well, I think we've got some guys that have earned the confidence in their coaches to get plays their way. And they've earned it in their quarterback to get them an opportunity to make those plays. Then, of course, you've got to use them when it counts. And I like the tone when we stepped out there in the first snap threw the ball. And so when you got Zeke Elliott back there 21, that's not necessarily the way it's been. So the most positive thing I have about today, frankly, is just the overall management, the overall play calling, the overall manifestation of what Moore and the offense has been doing. Now, that offensive line, when you've got that, we know that the minute they lighten up a little bit, here comes 21. And we got the line that's doing the protecting. Dak had a lot of time to throw today. And that all of that, of course, has to do with the quality of offensive line we got. I don't know that I've seen our ability and our willingness to make an adjustment and within a series or within, as the game went along, I don't know when we've had better people and better management to make the adjustment, call the play, and have all of that together and playing that well. It's been the years when if they put them up there to stop Emmett and Aikman handed it off 20 yards down the field.
You've been talking about the window closing for a long time, Jerry. How do you temper your excitement, given what you just said about this offense?
Well, because of my respect for all the other teams and the teams we're playing and the players they've got. And we know, we just get one pick around. We know these teams are loaded with talent. And we've got to really concentrate on what we have. And I like what we have. We've got some players that, young players that are, their arrow's really coming up, and we've got some players that we're paying. We've got to get that all, got to manage it and get it all under our resources, which are a cap. We do that, but then we've got the right attitude. I like the chemistry. I like the enthusiasm that's in this young team in here. And boy, that Van Der Esch, I'm telling you, you'd think it was, with your 4-year-old, you'd think it was coming down for Christmas down the stairs. But he's in there, he was excited, and he just said I should have held that ball on the interception. But he's playing with a lot of enthusiasm out there. And it makes a chill go up my spine when I hear that wolf call out there. And it does him too.
Is there any disappointment that Tristan Hill and Taco Charlton were inactive?
That what?
That Tristan Hill and Taco Charlton were inactive today?
Well, I think it speaks to our depth, and I think it speaks to the talent level. And I think it speaks to the guys that did rest out, how they have earned that first game start. So I think it's more about the positive part of it than it is anything negative with them. They're very capable. I'm confident that both Hill and Charlton can line up out there with the starting group and play well.
How much did you negotiate with Dak over the weekend? Did y'all do a lot of negotiating?
Again, we don't get in it. No, Dak had nothing to do this weekend but get ready for the job.
With his agents, did y'all have any conversations?
Yeah. Again, we don't talk about that at all. About what? It just was a real emotion when you saw him go up through there with that heavy hand. And it was great seeing him in this dressing room. And I'm glad that he made their defense honor him as much as they did, make the adjustments. But I'm really good by Moore's adjustments, by Dak's play. Dak's taking advantage of what they're doing. To me, that's the story of the day.
New York Stock Exchange, you end this holdout, you get this sort of Giants win. You could use one word to describe your week.
New York.
Two words.
All right. Frank Sinatra.
Do you have any?
Or that my way?
You,
Just keep going now. I'll think of one I know the words.
So you're going to start spreading the news,
There's one
Jerry?
in there somewhere.
You're going to start spreading the news? You're going to start spreading the news?
Spreading the news. Well, you guys do that for me. Okay, good.
do you regret not making this change to Kellen about 3 years ago?
Well, Kellen was playing quarterback 3
Oh, that's
years
right.
ago.
He was still playing.
Yeah, but seriously, give him his due. He's prepared. He had a whale of a training camp, but now he got to step out there and make those adjustments. He did do that, but he had a great game plan in mind. And our fans should be excited about that.
He might have raised the expectations too much, though. Do you want to have this good of a game in your first time out?
Yeah, I've been both places. I'd rather have high expectations going into the next game.
Norv didn't have that kind of debut, did he?
Looking up is no fun. All right.
Jerry, in the brief time that Antonio Brown was free yesterday, did you give any thought to that?
We didn't because you saw why today, really, with the play of those receivers, and we've got a couple of them that didn't get to be active today. Smith's had that we really want to see out there before too long. But no, I think I'm really pleased with where we are at receiver. So I didn't think we'd go there just as I didn't think we ought to go with Rolando McClain, because it's more about what we are and what we've got than it was what they aren't.
Jerry, if this was Eli's last game at AT&T Stadium, what will you remember about him?
Well, I hope it's not. I really do hope it's not. I just can't tell you how much I think of his dad, his family, all the way through, including his mom. And I'm honored that signature is on that locker back there. It just reminds me how those tears in my eyes when he came in here and won the first game we ever had in this stadium. But we're honored with his signature back there, and I won't let him take it off.
All right, there he was, Jerry, as only Jerry could do, out everybody jockeying for position as they always do after a game. We'll hear some of Kellen Moore coming up. Ed, before we move on to the defense, anything else? I think we need to discuss Zeke's return.
Yeah.
Zeke makes it back after the long holdout. Looked fine. I mean, it's not like he looked like out of shape or anything. Quite honestly, he just looked like a guy that they determined the Giants were going to kind of key on him, and tonight they were going to make their bones in the passing game.
I thought there were a couple runs where he got outside and he had one defender to beat to make a big play, and he just didn't seem like he had it, yet. So I have no doubt it's going to come in time.
One of the plays was called back. He got one play.
And he scored a touchdown, but he scored the last of the 5 touchdowns. But I think I wouldn't overreact to it because he missed all of training camp. There has to be some value to being in a training camp as opposed to being in Cabo, even if you're working out hard with Marshall Faulk, a Hall of Famer. And it's kind of consistent with Zeke as a slow starter over the course of his career. In fact, he's won the rushing title 2 of his 3 years in the NFL, and in week 1 of those 2 seasons where he won the rushing title, he was held under 70 yards rushing both times, and he was held under 70 yards again tonight because he had 53. So I don't think he was great. Part of it probably was his layoff. Part of it is a big adjustment to seeing things quickly and reacting spontaneously and being instinctive. I'm not saying he was bad. And you're probably right. The Giants were determined to stop that phase of the game. And you know what? That creates another question if what we saw tonight is not an aberration. The Cowboys are one of the few teams in the NFL in the past 3 years where the performance of the running back is more important than the performance of the quarterback, right? Tonight, that's not what happened. Dak Prescott threw them to a victory. And Zeke had 53 yards rushing. The Cowboys' record coming into this game, in games where Elliott had under 70 yards rushing, 0-6. This is the first time they've won a game where Elliott had less than 70 yards rushing.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting one right there. Ed, is that just you, or is that the ESPN Stats and Info
That's
group?
That's me coming up with the idea and saying, hey, what's the record when he's under 70 yards, and them going through their resources and all the analytics and coming up with the fact that, hey, you can say this is actually factually accurate. And so I just did.
I used to love those guys.
Yeah, they're an amazing resource.
I would send them stuff, and they would they'd come right back at it.
They can put stuff in a remarkable historic context almost instantaneously.
All right, Ed, I want you and I to talk a little of defense. You know, quite honestly, they gave up they gave up something early, and then at the end, I don't think it was a big deal. They were a little soft at the end. They would have liked to finish better. You and I will talk about that. But now it is time to hear from our the official scout of Doomsday, Glenn Stretch Smith, who will give his grades. And there is one particular group, I won't tell you who it is, the defense, that he has major concern about. Here is Glenn Stretch Smith with his grades for the Cowboys.
Stretch, great to have you back. A huge outing for the Cowboys. They get this thing taken care of today, and everybody's excited about Kellen Moore, the play calling. Let's start. People love the grades you give out. Let's start with the offense, and you know, we usually don't grade a play caller, but since this was Kellen Moore's debut, and Dak put up enormous numbers, let's do a Kellen Moore / Dak discussion real quick, and then give both of them a grade.
Well, I think you're headed in the right direction. I mean, I think everybody's kind of thinking after the game, and post-game shows are blowing up. Hey, who are you going to give the credit to here? And quite frankly, I think you spread it to both guys. I mean, I think that the quarterback made some great reads. I mean, the middle of the field was open. He moved to safety a couple times with his eyes. That was able to hit the skinny post. One time they rotated the coverage over, and it was almost Troy Aikman-esque, to Michael Irvin back on that short side, on the ex-receiver side. And so I think that, obviously Dak is getting better at understanding coverages, where guys are going, when they're going there. And then Kellen Moore, I thought there's going to be some transition time to him. And when you saw how he was able to move guys around, how he was able to get guys off press coverage by some of his formations and shifts and some of the things he did. I mean, both of those guys, on the same page, look like they've been working together all off season. There's no way you can give either one of them a grade other than an A, and really a great job by both of them being on the same page and taking this football team, I think, to a level of offense that we haven't seen around here in a long, long time.
Big time. A's for both of those guys. As we move throughout the offense, let's go to Zeke. And Zeke, obviously, they were doing so much through the air that the running game wasn't as huge a factor today. What did you see from Zeke coming back after the big long holdout?
About what I expected. He's such a downhill runner. He's such a physical runner. They didn't try to hit it up in there with him a bunch. He was able to, to still do some things. And I thought the best play he made all night was when they were going to run kind of a zone read look, and it was early there in the second half, when Dak was able to it is almost like the play looked like it had been miscalled. Zeke saw the blitz coming off, and he just said, to hell with the run fake. He went and got the Sam linebacker, and hit him right in the teeth, and it was able to allow his quarterback the time to throw the football. And I think that's really the difference with Zeke, is he understands protections. He knows what to do. He knows where to go. He knows who to pick up. And for that reason alone, he's worth his weight in what they paid him. Now, it's going to take him some time, I think, to get used to running that ball, hitting it in those tight areas, and all the things that go along with. Even though he did, and probably wouldn't have played in the preseason, he would have gotten in some, some work out there in Oxnard. So for a guy who was on the beach in Cabo 6 days ago, scratching his rear end, letting the breeze blow through him, I can't give him anything but an A.
Okay, A for Zeke. Good to hear. Let's go to the tight ends. You're a guy who used to coach tight ends in college, and you've had some experience in the NFL with that as well. So the Witten with a touchdown. That was kind of fun to see. And then, of course, Jarwin seemed to be heavily involved, especially early in this game. How tight ends look in this game?
They did a good job. I mean, I really thought that it is going to take Jason a little time, but he's so crafty. I thought it was unbelievable. There was a play in there, and it's everything that you would teach a player to do, which is to create separation. You got to go step on the defender's foot. Not only did he step on his dang foot, he got his cleat stuck in his foot, and they got tangled up and went down. It's a coaching point that, to me, he's what you want. Not only is he in the game and involved, but you see him when they come off. I mean, he's talking to Schultz. This is going to help this football team and help both of those young men immensely, whether he plays 1 year, 2 years, however long his body is able to take him there. Not a whole lot of production out of the, when you think about it, even though they caught 2 touchdowns, the production, you'd say, man, I need to keep the chains moving. They really were not going to allow Witten to run a bunch of that underneath stick and those things that, Dak used to be really comfortable with. But overall, I mean, a good job by both of those tight ends. I'm going to give them a B+ for the evening.
B+ for the tight ends. Let's move to the offensive line. You saw Martin was out there for the first time really in quite a while playing. They got Suafilo in there late in the game to spell him a little bit. How'd the offensive line hold up?
Really well. I mean, it's good to see Travis Frederick back out there. I mean, you make the point with Suafilo, and that's where I'm going to go here. When you think about the depth that this football team has at offensive line, and understanding that, hey, if you need to spell a guy here or there, you're really not going to see that much drop-off. And so I think the offensive line is going to carry this football team. I think they carried this football team with protection. Yeah, Zeke didn't rush for his 150 yards, but you know what? You got to win in different ways. And when the Giants are playing some of those Rudy Poo butt coverages that they were playing, I mean, they got exposed. And so the Cowboys took, I mean, as an offensive coach, that's what you want to see. You want to tell the offensive guys, take what the defense gives you, and that's exactly what they did. They were able to protect nothing but plus across the board for the offensive line. Yeah, I mean, Zach got called for a tripping. That was really kind of a questionable call because he was going to cut that guy. And, I mean, I know his back's bothering him, a little stiff there. He got called for a holding. That was even a questionable call in my mind. But, and I don't mean to sound like a homer, but both of those calls were pretty questionable calls. And I think, he was limited in what he could do. Then they put Suafilo in the game. Hey, all the way around, a great effort and a great job by the offensive line. Nothing but A's across the board for those guys.
Okay, wide receivers. Jerry told us after the game that there was a reason he didn't get involved in the AB conversations because he was hoping he would see exactly what they saw tonight. Huge numbers across the board. They got everybody involved in a hurry. Early it seemed to be all directed at Amari, but then, of course, they started sprinkling in Cobb, and Gallup ends up having a huge game. What do you think about the wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean, it's wide receiver core. I mean, I'm telling you, the 3 guys are as good as anybody in the league, and you can write that down right now. I don't care who you want to Kansas City. I don't care who you want to stack up against them. That they're that good, and it's interesting because I thought about this when I was driving in, Matt. A year ago tonight, you and I did, when we first started this, or I first started, you guys having me on. And I started thinking your starting receivers were Allen Hurn and Terrence Williams. And Beasley was the third. Now, you think this team hadn't upgraded big time from a receiver standpoint, and that's what, as a Cowboy fan, I mean, that's what's got to get you shot in the rear end, is you got guys that can go get it now. I mean, there were guys. I mean, obviously he hit Cooper in stride on the post, on the fade, and Cooper had to kind of wait on it right there. That hookup on the post, but that hookup will get much better. And boy, this receiving core is going to put some fear into to really anybody that they play. If those guys can stay healthy, fellas, they'll put up big numbers. Again, all around, an excellent effort by a receiving core. That's a really good receiving core. A's across the board for those guys.
Okay, let's flip over to defense. The only the thing that I sense from talking to you earlier is that there are a couple of concerns you might have in the secondary. This Giants team got off to a hot start, and they went ripping down the field. Obviously, Saquon was doing some big things early in the game, and then they had a couple of big plays. Shepard had a couple of plays. Latimer had some plays throughout the game. Let's start with the secondary. What did you make of the Cowboys secondary in this game?
You know, again, this has always been my concern. My concern last year. It's going to be my concern this year. And you know, Dallas didn't blitz a lot. They didn't put a lot of heat on him, and so he being Manning had time to sit in there. And any time that does that, you do expose your secondary a little bit. But I didn't. You know, I mean, Jordan Lewis made a play down there on the goal line and knock out a slant. But when you see how Awuzie, you know, he's just kind of not great cover skills. Frazier not great. I saw Brown kind of get beat. Now, I did see Heath make some plays, and Heath's a good center field player. But boy, I tell you, I am concerned. If they don't blitz and they don't get to the quarterback, this secondary can absolutely get exposed, and I think that's a concern for me right now. At best, I can give the secondary a C.
Okay, C for the secondary, probably your roughest grade of the evening, and Heath did take a bad angle early. Awuzie had to clean up a mess when they got loose. I think that was Saquon got loose on a big play down there. Linebackers, what did you make of Vander Esch, Jalen, and the rest of the crew?
Yeah, these are good football players. You know, it was interesting that what they did tonight was really trying to when Dallas got ahead. You know, they were playing pretty deep and trying to keep everything in front of them, and I thought that was, you know, that kind of hinders a little bit of their downhill ability. I mean, to be able to go get the run. I'm a little concerned that the Giants, I believe, kind of took a little bit of the game plan from what the Rams did in that NFC playoff game, and they were able to run the ball a little bit at the Cowboys, and so that's, you know, they're going to have to get that shored up from a linebacking perspective, because those guys are going to have to fill it in, come and tackle. And so, you know, I thought they really gave you an okay look at who they are. Not a great look. Vander Esch almost had the pick. Obviously, he can cover. He's long. He can do some things, and Jalen can run. So, you know, these guys just went and played football tonight, kept everything in front of them. I didn't see a lot of big plays being made. So, you know, for that, I'm going to give them a B. But there's room for improvement there also.
B for the linebackers. Jalen Smith obviously being named a captain and got that new contract, so pretty big deal for him. Defensive line. Interestingly, Taco, after a pretty good preseason, was inactive tonight. Boy, you should have seen him. He fired out of that locker room. You've never seen a man come out of the locker room quicker than Taco tonight. If he gets off the ball like that, he'll be something. What did you make of this defensive line?
Well, when you said he came out of the locker room quick, he didn't pull anything, did he? I mean, were you out there with an ice bag in case he pulled his hamstring trying to get out to his car? Well, you know what? I thought the defensive line they just kind of had a hard hat night. You know, they didn't really – there wasn't a lot there. Concerns me a little bit that they didn't get better pressure, and I'm not sure whether I want to right now be kind of openly critical about what they did, or if I want to give the Giants offensive line some credit, because I do think the Giants are better up front. But ultimately, if this team is going to win, and let's just think about this before I give the D-line the grade, if they're going to win the way they did tonight, which is throwing the ball all over the yard, you're going to get in some games where you're going to have some 3 and outs. The defense has got to be ready to come back on the field and play. That's a concern for me. They've got to get better pressure. They've got to get an ability to get up and kind of set the edge early in the game. Crawford got pushed hard down inside, and I know that's probably not his natural position. He's more of an inside DT, and when Quinn gets back, that'll give him some flexibility there. And if Gregory will ever quit rolling his own, maybe they can get him in there. So I do think that the defensive line has big time room for improvement. I didn't see a lot out of that group this evening. Concerns me. Them and the secondary have got to get better, but just kind of a hard hat, kind of a B- evening for the defensive line. Just not a lot to get you real excited about.
B- for the D line. Last off, special teams. Goodwin continues to be a real standout on these special teams. Anything jump out at you on special teams?
Well, I do like the combination of Austin and Cobb returning. I think that at some point you're going to see, you'll see a big play come off that punt team. Obviously, both kickers are strong, and they can really. They can really get the ball down the field. Not a whole lot from the special teams, but I think if you're looking ahead and you're looking down the road, you're looking at the possibility of what both Cobb and Austin can do. If they break free, that's what you want. You want that big play in that tight game that can turn the game over, turn the game around, turn the momentum around. And I think there's something to look forward to. Right now I'm gonna give them an incomplete grade. Mosley, you got plenty of those at Baylor when you were down there, so that ought to be familiar to you.
That's a fine. That's fine. I get that. I had a lot of those in law school. I ran into some issues in law school. Hey, you can always hear Stretch on WFAA Channel 8. You can watch him on there, hear him on Sunday nights with us, and of course, a lot of people listen to us on Monday mornings. And then throughout the week, and then, of course, the Matt Mosley Show, you can tune in, use that TuneIn radio app to hear him on the Matt Mosley Show, ESPN Central Texas. We're going to do that on Tuesdays, I believe about 10, we'll do about 10:40 every Tuesday morning is when you can hear Stretch. Stretch, really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, guys, appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, there it was. Stretch's grades and some good stuff from Stretch there as we get going again. Stretch, of course, doing his TV work. You can watch him on Channel 8 Sundays on the 10:30 The Del Hansen Special. When Del Hansen isn't on Ellen and doing some major unplugged, he's with Stretch doing his thing. And Ed, at some point we'll get to Kellen. We need to hear from Kellen. But let's you and I talk a little bit about the defense. I thought they got gashed in a big way. Saquon had a huge play, and it really looked like this was all, going to be some kind of track meet type game. As the game went on, Cowboys were obviously way ahead of what the Giants were doing offensively. Kind of weird that the Giants, I think if the Giants fans have a bone to pick, it would be, how could Saquon be that incredible early, and then you didn't just keep going to him constantly? Is there anything to that in your mind?
The problem with Saquon Barkley not getting enough opportunities is Pat Shurmur can't say, well, we lost control of the game and we couldn't run the football anymore because he's a good receiver. He had 14 catches against Dallas in his very first NFL game last year. He had 80 yards on 14 catches. So he's a unique running back in that he can be involved in both phases of the game. And so he should have gotten opportunities, if not running the football, then throw it to him when you're behind. The thing that makes him unique is his ability to score on any play from anywhere on the field. And so it doesn't really matter if you're down 2 or 3 touchdowns. If he's still the guy that can give you the score from any place on the field and get you back in the game, then there is no excuse for not giving him enough opportunities. So I could see that criticism being justified. And especially given, they didn't have Golden Tate because he's serving a suspension for PEDs. So they were really limited the number of weapons they had. Then the game got out of control, and then obviously they lost sight of what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree with you. It got away from them in a lot of ways there. Ed, looking at the Cowboys defense, they had some opportunities. They got after Eli, forced a couple of tough throws. Really didn't, came close to creating some takeaways. They finally get one late.
They
finally got a takeaway
on a fourth down.
You're right.
Giants were at the 7-yard line, went for it on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
Live, forced out of the pocket, and winds up getting hit by DeMarcus Lawrence, who gets a sack, strip, recovers a fumble, and but at that point I think it was like 35-7 anyway. So
yeah, you're right.
It wasn't going to be a significant score in the outcome of the game, but it was one of the few plays that, I guess, a flash play that the Cowboys defense made.
Dorrance Armstrong had a chance to get a sack, and Eli actually made a real good play, got away from him, and then made a throw.
It was almost like the famous play he made in the Super Bowl.
A little bit. Yeah, although it feels far removed from that Super Bowl. The one he was able to make downfield to David Tyree, of course, which were the great catches and throws of all time. I thought the defense was they put some pressure. It was interesting to me. We saw our man Taco, who had a nice preseason. Taco was not active today, and so he races out of the locker room. Tristan Hill. So you got a first-round pick in Taco, a second-round pick in Tristan Hill, not active, and so some of these guys that I'm trying to remember what Dorrance was. Here's a guy that was taken
fourth?
in maybe. Yeah, 4th or 5th round. I think you're right with the 4th round. But these were guys that, who was the guy they brought in? Hyder was out there.
Kerry Hyder.
Covington was the guy they signed in free agency. These were veteran players that they brought in free agency. And so I think that, Jerry said that spoke to sort of the depth that they've created, that they couldn't get a former first-round pick. They couldn't get a recent second-round pick on the field today.
There might be some small modicum of truth in that as it applies to Taco in particular. But I think mostly it represents dissatisfaction with the player. I mean, to me, that's the only reasonable explanation when Taco Charlton's healthy and active, when DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyrone Crawford have missed all of camp and didn't play in the preseason, so they're playing a limited number of snaps in this game. And when you consider on top of that Robert Quinn and Randy Gregory aren't here because they're serving suspensions, that you're down effectively, 4 guys who are either out or playing in a limited capacity, and you're still not in uniform as a first-round pick 3 years later. I think that suggests that Taco Charlton is probably not going to finish his career as a Cowboy, and maybe he won't even finish this season or possibly this week as a Cowboy.
If there was one quibble with this performance, I would say, and we'll stretch handed out a C to the secondary, it would be, especially early in the game, Heath took a really bad angle, and of course he missed Barkley. Cheeto comes all the way back, gets him. I thought Anthony Brown had a real bad missed tackle in this game early on.
Also on Barkley.
But Barkley's a great player.
And Barkley, as a running back, broke more tackles than any running back in football last year. So it's not unforgivable to miss a tackle like Brown did. It is unforgivable to completely whiff on a play like Heath did.
Yes, because you are the last layer.
He was the last defender, and if Cheeto hadn't hustled and had incredible speed, that would have been a touchdown, which ultimately the drive ended in a touchdown anyway, but at least they gave themselves a chance to limit it to a field goal or something less.
Isn't it amazing today, and this is back to the offense, but to look at the weapons and those 5 receivers. Devin Smith obviously wasn't involved today, but 5 wide receivers. Tavon was involved. Cobb looked really good.
Gallup looked terrific.
Gallup looked great. But to compare that to what they went to
a year ago this time
with, I mean, it's kind of unfair to and some of it might have been Linehan's fault, on that. It probably wasn't. He's not the one who wanted to go in with that group of wide receivers, but
I think Steven and the front office have taken the hit for that.
You're right. With us, in fact, when Steven went on with us. But this guy, Kellen Moore, he did a great job. You don't want to take anything away from him. We're about to hear from him, but he did have a full complement of weapons, and Linehan did not going into last season.
Right, but it's also, I think, the way he uses them. And I would say it appears to me that he's more like Sean McVay of the Rams than he is Sean Payton. From the standpoint of, he doesn't change personnel a lot like Sean Payton does. On every play, Sean Payton will bring in 3 or 4 different guys, every down. That's not what McVay does. McVay keeps, for the most part, his 11 starters out there. But then he uses all kinds of pre-snap, shifts and motions, misdirection, and I really thought that's what Kellen Moore brought to the offense. And we saw some zone reads with Dak that were effective. But he was most effective in just taking the ball out of the shotgun, and he had 3 or 4 wides. We saw both Zeke and the rookie running back that they Pollard both line up in the slot and run routes out of the slot. I don't think we ever saw that from the previous administration, and I don't blame Linehan entirely. But talking to Jerry after the game and down the hall after he did his group press conference, there was no question that he gave a lot of credit to Scott Linehan for what Kellen Moore is as a coach, because they've been together for 6 or 7 years as not only a player. Kellen Moore was a player with him in Detroit, a player for him here, and then began his coaching career under Linehan, and Jason Garrett, because he said, when I decided that it was going to be Kellen Moore, some people would say, well, if you're taking play calling away from me, then it's not me anymore. And Garrett didn't go that far. He wanted to call the plays, but he didn't go so far as to say, if I'm not calling the plays, then I'm not going to be here. Now, maybe he's just a survivor and knew that Jerry would have fired him had he said that, but it's not a stand he took, according to Jerry. And so Jerry gave credit to both Garrett and Linehan for what Kellen Moore was today.
Yeah, and it was remarkable. And before we hear from Kellen, where do you, if I said Jacksonville, let me throw out a couple of places. Jacksonville, Redskins. Where will Kellen Moore be the head coach next year?
Well, we laugh, and I was saying, how old is Kellen Moore?
30.
He's 30. So, Sean McVay got the head coaching job
29 or 30.
Right, at about that same time, and inherited the worst offense in football and made it the best offense in football in 1 year. So there's no reason that this can't be that type of transformation under Kellen Moore. If everybody stays healthy. Jared Goff was not a proven quarterback by any means when McVay went to the Rams and made him the player that he is now and got him to a Super Bowl. And they've had one of the most consistent high-level offenses over the past 3 years. There's no reason that can't happen here. It can happen in 1 year. It can happen if you go out and get the right players and you have an imaginative, creative coach and you have players who are able to execute.
Yeah.
At the end of this, I'm going to give you the stat. Okay.
That's gonna blow us away.
I'm going to give you the Kellen Moore stat.
The Doomsday stat.
That says it all.
Stat of the week.
Yes.
I like that. Okay, it is time to hear from Kellen. I was able to jump in there. Kellen tried to do, he's too young to pull this off. He tried to do a real quick answers early on. I could tell he was going to try it, but he's kind of a nice kid, or nice young coach, and he wasn't able to pull the Belichick, the quick answer thing off. Here is our visit, along with a few other reporters, Kellen Moore.
Did you kind of come in knowing, hey, they got a rookie cornerback, that's something we need to think of? Obviously, y'all victimized a lot of their back, secondary, but in particular him. Was that a big part of the strategy coming in?
I think naturally you're always aware of the personnel aspects. Janoris has had a lot of success in this league, and so, certainly you feel like he's a really talented guy, and just the more, variety we can give them, the more things they got to look at, maybe get some matchups here and there.
How much were you itching for this, not being able to show all this during the preseason and finally being able to unleash?
Yeah, naturally, preseason, we want to still execute, we want to still do a good job, but obviously there are certain things that we didn't necessarily want to throw out there early, and so, I feel like it was a good start to the season, and hopefully we can kind of build on this and continue to, pull some different things out.
You had a couple, touchdowns, but two of them were wide open, which you don't see a lot. Can you talk about the call to Cobb and then also the other one that was
just play action passes. Tremendous job. Obviously, when you have a ability to run it like we do, those backers suck down, and we had great opportunities behind it.
And then also, the Elliott's run for the touchdown. It looked like he had motion going 2 separate ways. Is that an example of just using motion and getting different looks?
Had a little shift and then motion and then a little read option play. So, bunch of things for them to look at. At the end of the day, it's kind of our core play and what we've done, a number of times.
What did you think about Zeke's ability to get back in there? Obviously, he didn't have a huge day running the ball, but y'all were passing it so much.
Yeah, it was great for Zeke. Obviously, we were able to throw a healthy dose, and Zeke's going to get his when he gets his, and obviously his play count probably wasn't super high, probably just under 40, and we'll continue to build on that and keep adding more and more as this thing progresses.
What can you say about what Dak was able to do, especially in the first half with Zeke getting out to that slow start?
Yeah. I mean, we were just throwing it for a healthy dose. Dak did a great job. I think just got really comfortable. He just has such a good command of the offense, and I think everyone feels really confident when he's out there.
All the build up to this opener, first time as the offensive coordinator, what excites you most about what Dak was able to do in this going forward?
Yeah, I think all the positive, and also recognizing that there's a bunch of little things that we kind of look at ourselves and laugh or get frustrated. It's like those are easy things that we screwed up on, and hopefully we can clean those up and come out here and play a little bit better.
Kellen, did you have some butterflies? I mean, first, obviously calling a regular season game.
Yeah, it's natural. I think, you should have butterflies a little bit, and then you kind of get into the groove of it, getting the groove of play calling and just all the communication aspects. So it was good.
Kellen, what do you feel when you hear Jerry Jones talk about how impressed he was? First thing he says is how impressed he was by that Kellen Moore offense.
He got my name right. He used to call me Keelan, so must mean I'm doing something right. But no, I think we had a lot of success, and obviously we're fortunate we were able to kind of get in the groove there in the second and third quarter, and so hopefully we can build on it. There's a lot of silly things that you watched and you said, we can improve on those, but hopefully it gets better.
Was it aggressive by nature, or were you taking what they gave you, Kellen?
Yeah, a combination of both. We want to be aggressive. We want to kind of dictate things with our shift in motion personnel, but at the same time being able to get on the ball and do some of that no-huddle stuff. Obviously, a lot of our guys are really comfortable with that. That's kind of the way they grew up. They were in no-huddle, in high school and college, and so the more you can sprinkle that in, I think it helps us.
First play of the second half, was that something that you saw earlier, or was that something that Dak checked too?
No, something we kind of wanted to get to. It was actually in our openers, and it took us till play 45 or whatever to finally get to it. But it was a look we had looked at previously and wanted to take a shot at it.
Do you script it out? Do you script like some offensive coordinators script out?
Yeah.
Like 15, 17 plays? Do you kind of?
Yeah, you script them out, and sometimes they aren't going to flow the same way. I mean, that play was on the openers, and it took till play 45 to find the right spot, the right hash, the right situation, all that sort of stuff. And so sometimes you just hang with those for a little while, and eventually they come.
Jerry was particularly happy with your first play call, play action, throwing it deep, and to kind of keep the defense honest. Was that something that how much thought went into starting the game that way?
Yeah. I think first down calls. We have a lot of success around the football, and anytime we can kind of mix that thing, balance it out on first down with some of those play actions, I think they're going to help us.
Jarwin is also a play action too.
Yes.
You were talking to, like you were saying, Elliott wasn't out there as much as he will be as the season goes along. Is it kind of incumbent on you to make sure everything is still diverse once he gets back to who he is?
Yeah.
And success early helps that, right?
Yeah, certainly. We, what Zeke's been able to do the last few years, we want to continue to build on that, and we're continuing to embrace that. And a few other things here and there we can try and sprinkle in, and obviously we feel good about Tony, and he got stuck in kind of those run it out periods at the end, and so probably his numbers weren't the greatest, but we feel really good about those two guys, and as we continue to build this thing, get Zeke more comfortable back into the groove of this, I think it'll build on itself.
Do you lean on any of your former coaches or mentors as to make up your philosophy?
Yeah, I think I get from every stop. My dad was my high school coach at Boise with a bunch of people, and then all the stops in the NFL. I think hopefully you learn from everyone, pull bits and pieces of it, and hopefully it becomes something you really appreciate and like.
So this was partly the Boise offense?
Could be. Maybe a little bit more of that will come out. We'll see how it goes.
How much pride do you take in Dak having a perfect quarterback rating?
It's good, yeah. I think, he played really, really well. I think he got really comfortable as the game went on and just simply executed.
What does Cobb give you that obviously had, some yards after catch, bounced off some tackles and all, but what does he give you maybe that you didn't, not say anything about a former player, but what does he bring to the offense?
Yeah, I think just in general, he's a smart, savvy guy who just understands football. And, anytime you have as many those guys as you can, good things are going to happen. And so he did a tremendous job today, and we're really excited to have him.
I know it wasn't perfect, but all in all, could you have asked for a better start?
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, it was a great start. It was a great start. We played really well. There's little moments where you want it a little bit better, start faster, end better. But, we got to recognize all the good things and continue to build on those. Yep, awesome.
This is what's expected of you every week now.
All right, there it was, and Kellen Moore talking a lot of fronts, and at the end of it, Ed, you heard me tell him, this is the expectation now. This is what people will expect of you. Just a great, it's funny, they don't run different plays. The plays aren't that different, but what is different is the way you set it up. You mentioned you'd see Amari in the slot. You would see more motion. Alawale.
See crossing routes. You see bunch sets.
The fullback's running a deep route.
Right. A wheel route with the fullback. And just missed. Potential touchdown. Just missed the throw.
And you had some busted coverages, but again, you still, for whatever reason, the Giants were biting on everything. I mean, they were really biting on stuff, and the play action was killing them. And we saw Dak, even with no contract yet, the no contract extension, Dak with a couple of running plays that worked out pretty nicely. And I'm sure.
I'm a little curious. I've been curious about that, and I can't decide if that's a good question or a stupid question, which I guess is the reason I haven't asked it yet, because I'm still wrestling with that dilemma. Is it a good question once he signs his big money contract? Can you still run this guy as much as you might like to when he was one of the lowest paid quarterbacks in football? Yeah. I mean, Cooper Rush is still the next guy in, so I don't know that it really makes a lot of difference, right?
I think when you have Cooper as your backup, that's what I tweeted. I said it's the ultimate flex from the Cowboys to put Cooper Rush in a regular season game. Just the sight of him, even entering the game when the game's been decided, that's a moment when you know the Cowboys have it in hand.
So we know that Jerry has a habit of calling people by their incorrect names, right? He used to call Bill Parcells Purcell, Coach Purcell.
Yeah.
And apparently he used to call Kellen Moore, said he used to call me Kellen.
Yeah.
Kellen. And so somebody said, well, he called you Kellen tonight. He said, well, then I must be doing something right. Because now Jerry knows my name. So that was one thing. And then the other thing Jerry's known for is hyperbole, right? And I think we heard a little bit ago, one of the interesting things he said after the game was, in terms of being able to beat a defense that overcommits to the run by throwing it, or being able to beat a defense that overcommits to the pass by running it, I don't think we've had what we now have in Dak and Zeke since Troy and Emmett. That's hyperbole. Because these guys are 3 Super Bowls short of that.
Yeah. Well, that's big to throw out. Now, you really, I think all of us would agree that you piqued our interest. Ed, do you have any, before we get to the Werder stat of the week, is there anything else you need to share? Because I'm kind of excited to hear that. Is there any other, you amass a lot of notes throughout the week. You talk to both coaches. You're a man who's been known to show up at the team hotel of the opposite team.
I don't surprise them in that way.
What's that?
I don't surprise them in that way. It's prearranged. I don't just ambush. I don't jump out of the landscaping by the front door.
The agent for Zeke told me he did not expect to see you in that lobby the other night.
That may be true. That was a happy coincidence.
What do you got to share with us as we kind of sign off tonight?
So my final, Kellen Moore is a genius, which is what Dak called him, by the way, right? Dak in his press conference said, when I came here as a rookie, he and I were competing to be Tony Romo's backup. And what did he say? He was demoralized?
Yes, they used that word. It was demoralizing.
It was demoralizing how he anticipated things.
Who could read all the defenses.
He knew where he could anticipate, throw with anticipation and accuracy, and it really bothered Dak that he couldn't do that, right? And now this guy's his offensive coordinator. So here's my stat. I think if there's one statistic or one failing that got Scott Linehan fired as the offensive coordinator and got Kellen Moore promoted to play caller, it was this. They had the NFL's leading rusher at running back in Zeke Elliott. They had a dual threat quarterback in Dak Prescott, just like they have now. And Dallas scored touchdowns on 52% of its goal-to-goal opportunities last season. That was dead last in the NFL. Tonight, they were 1 for 1. Beyond that, the first chance they got, Kellen Moore has them go no huddle, play action, roll out by Dak, and an easy touchdown throw to Jason Witten. That was the end of a 93-yard drive. They were also one of the 4 worst teams in the league in red zone efficiency, turning opportunities where you drive inside the 20 into touchdowns. The Cowboys ranked with 3 other teams, none of whom won more than 4 games last year. It was like San Francisco, the Jets, and maybe Jacksonville. That's who the Cowboys ranked with. Even though they won the division and went to the playoffs and won a playoff game, they were one of the 4 worst teams in the league, red zone scoring touchdowns. And in this game, they were 2 for 2. So they are perfect in the red zone. They're perfect in goal to go. And Kellen Moore's off to a fantastic start, making himself a viable head coaching candidate in years to come.
Crazy. 1 game and all this is it. And of course, next week it could go to Washington and it all could come crumbling down. Almost did for the Eagles today.
That's what happened to the Cowboys last year, right? It was, to me, the biggest indictment of this coaching staff, all of them, but especially the offensive side, was they had that game I mentioned against Philadelphia, a historic offensive performance with a 400-yard passer, a 200-yard receiver. I guess it was a 200-yard receiver. Amari was a 200-yard receiver in the game, and a 100-yard rusher. They never had that in the history of the franchise. They have it against the Eagles, and the next week, they go to Indy and get shut out. I mean, come on. So, yeah, there's something to proving sustainability.
Yeah, but a great start to the season for the Cowboys. Eagles survived, but boy, they got pushed in a big way today by the Redskins, and of course the Giants just look about what we kind of thought the Giants were going to look like, although Saquon may end up, all these fantasy people who took Saquon, he's going to have a big year. He's just a great player. They'll have better days than they did today, but good win for the Cowboys. Want to thank DJ Ringenberg from over at 103.3 FM ESPN. Did a nice job for us on the ground here. I want to thank Jim and Sally Nation offering their suite. They do a beautiful job for us, giving us this kind of great. Ed, wonderful job by you. Anything, any parting, any last thought for you before we say goodnight to our people?
I tried to end with the brilliant stat. Now you forced me to end on kind of
I thought, usually there's always one last thing you're looking to say, but you did end on a great stat. We're going to get out on that. We're going to hope that I have not been towed. My parking situation was a little bit iffy today. Also, my credential situation.
I don't know how many more times we'll be doing this up here.
Yeah,
I think is what we're saying.
Who knows? But this was
last year
strong.
You were the one who had no problems getting a good credential, and I had potential issues with credentialing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now it's flipped. Like you work for every media entity in the Dallas-Fort Worth marketplace. Why can you not get your own credential? Why are you wearing?
I got a lot of gigs.
I can't even say the man's name. Well, this
is my station, radio station now, the Matt Mosley Show. But we all share. We got 2 credentials at the station, and this is a black man. If you can't tell, the credential I'm wearing.
I was aware of that.
I am not. I don't know. I don't want to shock anybody. I am not a black man. I am Native American and white. So it's been an interesting evening, but I made it around. I made it in. Everything was okay, and all the people seemed to be happy to see me, except for the. I won't get into that. There seems to be one person in PR that's not excited to see me. Great job, DJ. Great job, Ed. It is the Doomsday podcast. That's a wrap. We will see you next Sunday after the Cowboys play the Washington Redskins. Good night, everybody.
Shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before.
There are any number of reasons you might consider selling your home. To move closer to family, live within a smaller budget, or just wanting a change of scenery. Whatever your reasons, having to figure out all the various housing market trends in your area may not be what you signed up for. That's where an agent who is a realtor comes in. Realtors have the expertise to help you find the right price and navigate the process to sell your home in a way that's right for you. That's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Norman, we need to pause this surgery.
What, doctor?
Because Xfinity Mobile just got even better. Now you're automatically connected to Wi-Fi speeds up to a gig while you're on the go. Plus, existing Xfinity customers can buy one unlimited line and get one free for a year.
Visit XfinityMobile.com to learn more. Offer ends 6/21. Restrictions apply. Existing Xfinity Internet service and 2 new unlimited lines required. Reduced speeds after 30 gigabytes of usage per line. Data thresholds may vary. Actual Wi-Fi speeds vary, not guaranteed.